Where there's smoke, there's fire. This quote is especially true in the case of the West Coast this year. Welcome, Mr. Fromm and other audience members. My name is Riley Newell and I am in grade 10. And the current event topic that I chose to talk about today are the West Coast fires, mainly concentrating on California and Oregon. One of the biggest questions that I found people had while I was researching was, how did the fires start? From the information that I gathered from the New York Times, most of the fires in California and Oregon were started by a mixture of lightning strikes and the hot, dry, and windy weather these states have been having this year. However, there was one case when a man was arrested and charged with arson for a connection with a fire in southern Oregon. Many of you may be thinking, yeah, lightning strikes can cause fires, but how many fires can they really start? Even though lightning did not start all the fires, Oregon had enough fires to burn 1 million acres of land, but that's nothing compared to California. California had at least 8,000 fires, which totaled up to the new state record of 3 million acres burned. The fires swept across the acres so fast that people had no time to gather their belongings and little time to get away. In fact, there is a story where about 200 California campers did not have time to get away. The Creek Fire in Sierra National Forest had surrounded them in all directions, and they couldn't get out on their own. Some said they were on their own and there was no way anybody could help. However, military helicopters did come in during the 47 degrees Celsius weather and airlifted all the campers out. The fires on the West Coast moved so fast that Oregon authorities not only explained them as dangerous and massive, but as unpredictable. On September 9th, the massive August Complex Fire was named the biggest fire in California state history. California is close to half the size of Prince Edward Island, and this fire was 471,000 acres. Can you imagine how much smoke was from all the fires combined? Well, there was enough smoke in all of the West Coast to put Oregon in second place globally for the worst air quality during that time. Besides the fires having a physical effect on the states, they had an emotional effect on the people. These people had to leave everything they owned behind and then watch at a distance as it all got burnt by fire. Some even left family members behind. One example of this is when a man stayed behind to look after his dog. Later, his body was found in the flooring of his house with his German Shepherd lying on top of him. This is just one example of the 33 deaths in California and Oregon from these fires. And even though 33 people died, at least 50 more are still considered missing when they stayed behind to look after their houses and endure the fires. Now you know how the smoke and fires affected people and things physically and emotionally. But what about medically? When wildfire smoke comes close to the ground, as it did in the United States and other parts of North America, it spreads harmful microscopic particles. When these granules are inhaled, they can enter your bloodstream and cause inflammation and affect parts of your body. This is why people and animals have such a hard time when it is smoky out, and why it is important to stay indoors with your windows closed when the air is hazardous. So, how do we prevent wildfires? How do we stop the spread of tragedies and flames from coming across the acres so quickly and harshly? It all starts by doing our part to follow guidelines as when to have safe campfires, by keeping our outdoor flammable objects out of direct sun and heat, and by keeping our yards free of windblown branches and debris. But fire prevention does not stop there. It also includes managing our forests properly, selective logging, and properly cleaning up once the logging is complete. By doing so, we may not have to spend the $2.6 billion to put out fires as the United States Forest Service had to do in 2018. In closing, Here's what the United States Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, said about fires, fire prevention, and why the government is having so much trouble with it. We end up having to hoard all the money that is intended for fire prevention because we're afraid we're going to need it to actually fight the fires. Remember, no matter what the years to come may look like for forest fires, keep in mind the words of Smokey the Bear. Only you can prevent forest fires.